I literally stood up one by one. I stole their phones. I threw it into a box and I just said like, hey, we're going into wild mode. We're not doing this anymore. Let's be present.
Founder of FreeWild. He has an 18-year real estate veteran turned hospitality innovator. They are a real hospitality brand builder. They've been redefining nature stays for modern guests. They blend this emotional resonance with short-term rentals and with the kind of consistency of boutique hotels in their projects. In addition to building FreeWild, Eric runs a revenue management company that oversees $50 million in annual bookings across 30 short-term rentals. He's also a sought-after speaker, podcast guest, and educator in the STR space, known for mentoring thousands of operators and occasionally co-hosting the podcast Get Paid for Your Pad with over 1 million downloads. So, Eric, hey, good to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, awesome meeting you as well. Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just kind of give us, our guests, a little bit of background, how you got into this space, how you got into building, FreeWild.
Yeah, well, I've been in the short-term rental space for going on 10 years now. Prior to that, grew up in a blue collar family. So I grew up in construction. I was a carpenter for a little bit, and I used that skill set to get into flipping houses. And so that was my start. Very early age, 19, bought my first house, flipped it, bought 2 more houses, flipped those, and kind of just like all in on the real estate side. And that kind of led to me buying small apartment buildings and all of that stuff. And although it was successful, I found myself just like not excited about the asset, and the areas I was investing into were buying like just like crappy properties and undesirable areas. And I wanted to find something a little bit different. And I came out to San Diego for a mastermind, and I met a pretty big real estate investor here who was at the time doing something completely radical, converting his vacancies into Airbnbs. That sounds normal now, but 10 years ago, it was not normal at all to do that. So he brought me on a tour around San Diego, showing me all these buildings that were outside of the tourist area that he was running as Airbnbs. And that kind of sparked the idea for me. I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm moving to San Diego. I'm from Jersey, moving to San Diego. And I started partnering with property investors and leasing all of their vacancies that they had all around San Diego, and then getting their permission to stage it and re-rent it back out on Airbnb. And then I kept the difference, right? So arbitrage. So I did that for a long time, which led me into property management. We grew a big property management company because I was somewhat of an early starter in the air quote Airbnb space. A lot of people were coming to us for consulting and coaching and all that stuff. So we launched a consulting and coaching company, and we grew that, focusing on helping short-term rental companies scale into brands, hospitality brands. And then through that whole process, I fell in love with hospitality, and then I really started understanding that like for us to really succeed in the short-term rental industry, we had to create something that was super unique, and we had to create a brand that can outcompete all the competition and everything that's happening in the space. So yeah, there's a lot to this story, but I went on I shut down our educational company that was doing really, really well, but it just wasn't really my passion, what I wanted to do. And we started traveling and, staying in all these different Airbnbs, and on a massive hike I was on in Utah. That's where I started really coming up with the idea of FreeWild. Finding these old cabin communities in these nature-inspired locations that are easy to get to from a city, 1 to 2 hour drive, and really building and designing these properties to be design forward, really amazing, all immersive designs, right? Mm-hmm. But then also with a twist of helping our guests disconnect from technology, which we call wild mode. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I made the shift. I burnt all the bridges, burnt all the boats, went all in on this idea of FreeWild and this crazy idea of creating essentially a hotel brand from the ground up. And 3 years later, we're rocking and rolling. It's spawned this incredible property we have in Idlewild, California. Working on our second location now. And then it also kicked off our service side of the business, FreeWild Foundry. So that's an extremely quick elevator pitch of my history here.
I love it, man. And I love the journey that you're on. As people get to kind of know you, like there's a real authenticity of this, you can just feel in the media that you guys put out, kind of this connection to nature.
Mm.
And I think it's really solving a real problem that a lot of us, a lot of this generation is having. That's just kind of, you're stuck to screens all day long. There's not that same experience. Maybe you and I grew up as kids where, you did spend, your mornings running out and playing in the woods, camping with, your family. It's a little more difficult, a little less connected. And, I think it's just real important to give a place that you're making it easy for people to connect to nature. I
Yeah.
think becomes one of the most important things.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with this idea for wild mode? Talk about that a little bit. I think
Yeah.
that's a really cool part of y'all's story.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's and it's still part of me, right? Like for the ones that are watching, this is called a yonder bag. If you could see this, are you familiar with this?
No, what is this?
Okay, so this you'll see this bag a lot at like concerts and comedy shows, and they're now rolling them out in schools. And it's a bag that you put your cell phone in, and it locks at the top. And the only way to get your phone is to hit a magnet that's on the other side of the room that will unlock the lock, right? So the reason I bring this up is like this is still a challenge for me, is my relationship with technology, right? I freaking love technology. I'm not trying to demonize technology, but there's a distortion to the amount of technology that we have access to and the usage of it, right? Like right now in the moment, over because I've been on, I think we met on LinkedIn, correct? Yeah. So I'm like obsessed with just like writing every day, just sitting down with my coffee in the morning and just creating content, just writing and just like giving my opinion of the industry and business and the whole thing. But because of that, there's this awesome feedback loop. I'm meeting these awesome human beings and jumping on podcasts, getting feedback, all this stuff. And I'm freaking addicted to LinkedIn right now, like, and the conversations, and I'm on it all the time. I'm like, all right, I need a break. I need a disconnect from this. So the origin story of Wild Mode is this was at like roughly 2020, the height of COVID, the height of elections, back then, all the chaos that was happening everywhere. I just remember we were on this road trip and we ended up in Utah, and we rented this beautiful mountain house that had this gorgeous mountain view. And all I wanted to do was just disconnect from the world, right? I didn't want to worry about elections and the riots and protests and COVID and all this stuff that was happening. And I invited a bunch of buddies up and like, hey, let's just get into the mountains, go hiking. Let's just disconnect, do the whole thing. Everyone gets to the house and we're sitting around the first night. We're sitting around this beautiful campfire that's overlooking the mountains. The sun is setting. And I'm just like, this is exactly what I want. And I pick my head up and I look around, and every single person that I invited out there has their head down in their cell phone talking about the exact same thing that they were doing back home. And I'm like, guys, we're not doing this right now. I literally stood up one by one. I stole their phones. I threw it into a box and I just said like, hey, we're going into wild mode. I'm like, we're not doing this anymore. Let's be present. And that night, it took a little while for everyone to like break that, you ever like throughout the day, like without even thinking about it, you're just like grabbing for your phone.
Yeah.
You're just looking for it. And it's like,
we're all addicted. I mean,
everybody,
yeah,
everyone from the youngest person who has a cell phone to the oldest person who has a cell phone, and everyone in between is addicted to it. So I realized that, and like that weekend was one of the greatest weekends I've ever had because we stayed in wild mode. And there was from times that we would check in and do some stuff. All my friends are entrepreneurs, and so we have to kind of check in. And it brought this idea to me that I wanted to develop these cabins, these spaces that would inspire people to be in nature through the location, through the design, all of that, but then also invite them into what we're calling now wild mode, where it's, yes, you can go to off-grid properties. And we stayed at a few of those during this trip. And being fully off-grid, it's fun for a night or two. Like camping's awesome, but after like a night or two, you just want to watch Netflix and chill out and like not worry about things. There's only so many books that you can read and so forth. So I realized like I want to develop something where we invite people into this experience of disconnecting from their technology. And once you're in wild mode, we then help you create different experiences. So in FreeWild right now, we're developing the wild switch, where it comes with two modes, free mode and wild mode. And when you're in free mode, it's a physical switch in the house. When you're in wild free mode, you regular Airbnb or hotel room, right? You have Wi-Fi, Netflix, you're doing whatever the hell you want to do. Once you switch it into wild mode, it shuts off your Wi-Fi and it unlocks a part of the house that you only have access to while you're in wild mode. And the concept is we want to reward you for putting your phones away and just being present, right? And it's kind of like bringing people back to the 90s, right? Of like, let's just disconnect from it for a moment or for the entire trip, whatever you choose. So we're working that into our properties. We're working that into our designs. We're developing and designing a FreeWild cabin that we're going to pop up on our properties in the future that has that technology built into it. So yeah, it's a long origin story of me battling my own addiction to technology. And then once you're aware, and I challenge all the listeners to do this, next time you're out food shopping, next time you go out to eat, just don't bring your phone, leave it in the car. You're going to notice two things. One is you're constantly grabbing for it. You're constantly looking for it. And then two, if you just stop for a second and look around, everyone is addicted. Everyone has their head down looking at their phone. Everybody. That's a problem. And I'm not trying to, again, demonize technology, but if we can help guests, if we can help travelers just disconnect from that from a moment, like that lights us up. That's our mission. That's what we're excited about the most.
Yeah, I mean that's super good. I like that. You're approaching this in a practical way. We're not going back to 1980, 1990. We are where we are, and it is great. We're living in one of the most abundant times in history. The ability to be able to have these conversations and meet people across the country that we're connected in different ways, and then thousands of people that are out there right now listening to this. I mean, I wouldn't want to back that out. But right. You do need to take those segments and just give them like hey, let's segment this out. Let's give a space. And you can do that in your personal home. Like we try not to set our phones in our bed when we go to bed. We try to set it out during dinner, but really thinking about it as part of your vacation experience. And it is great to be able to relax, watch a movie. That's part of vacation, but it's also really great to, shut it off, sit around a table, play games with your family, actually spend some connection time with your loved one. How many times you sit in bed and you're looking at phone versus, hey, you could be spending that with your spouse.
Yeah.
So
really important.
It's really important. And I like how you're integrating that into design. And so that the spaces are, an extension of that idea. You're not forcing anybody. You're just giving the opportunity to step into it.
Yeah. 100%. And that's the stuff that lights me up, man, is like, how do we, and this can go into like conversation about brand itself and like why, it's like, okay, we're a short-term rental hospitality company, right? Why is this the mission that we're focused on? And it literally, wild mode is the number one thing that drives everything in our company. And it drives it all the way down to, it's like, okay, once you're present, right? For me, at least, once my phone is away, and that first like 30 to 45 minutes of fighting that addiction of like, oh, I got to respond to this, or what about this, or what's happening here, and let me just pick up the phone because I'm bored. Like no one's bored anymore, which is nuts. Once you put the phone away, for me, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to like break that addiction, that tethered connection to the phone. I'm just more present, right? So, and once I recognize that, I realized that most short-term rental properties out there, even like the coolest Airbnbs in the world, they didn't put focus into design. Like they're putting cheap materials in the property. They're putting cheap furniture. They're not thinking through the guest experience, right? And I recognize, I'm like, oh, I'm obsessed with detail when I'm present. So now in the designs of FreeWild, like we put a lot of attention into the guest experience through the products that we put in the property, right? So all of our furniture, it's a mix of new furniture, but also reclaimed furniture. So there's a lot of soul in the items that we put in there. You can feel the difference between an IKEA desk, which I have right now that I'm working out of my office on, and my workbench, which is on the other side of the office here, that is a solid piece of wood, right? That's like 100 years old as a desk, right? So like all of that wild mode is like, okay, once someone is in wild mode and they're disconnected, how else can we help curate experiences for them? And we've gone all the way down to the colors that we've chosen in the properties, to the materials, to the smells, to the cleaning products. Like all of those are guest touch points that create an experience for the humans that are deciding to spend their time and money with us.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of like self retraining, right? It's like one thing to just say, okay, we're gonna shut off, and then if you haven't had that experience of being shut off, I think about our teenage kids, then they'll kind of sit around for 10 minutes and look at each other and be like, well, then what,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so maybe in this environment, you're giving them a couple of opportunities that are a little bit curated to say, okay, here's what you might do, and it might be a little bit more awkward and hand holding to show them that. But what are some of the ways that Idlewild and your properties are helping people kind of just retrain themselves to get back to the wild?
Yeah. So, right now we don't, that switch that I'm talking about, we haven't, the current property that we have, we bought 3 parcels of land in Idlewild. Idlewild's about a 2-hour drive from LA and San Diego.
Okay.
It's a gorgeous little mountain town that no one really knew about until the last few years. And on the 3 pieces of land, there was 4 old cabins that we used to launch this concept in this brand. And there we developed out our wild box. So it's just a pine box that you lock your phone into, and inside there you have a disposable camera, you have a wild map, and a whole bunch of different scenarios, right? So the second lot that we have is about 1.5 acres of land, and the goal is to develop out more cabins on this property. But California takes a very long time to do anything business or real estate related. So we converted that land to what we call Wildwood Park. So it's a full guest experience full of amenities, from stargazing nets to fire pits to hammocks, like all this stuff. So the first thing is we invite you into wild mode by locking your phone away. Once you do that, we give you different things and suggestions to spend your time, right? Like the music, we have record players in every single house. So the idea is like slow down and listen to a record and kind of be present to that. Or take the wild map and go around Wildwood Park and find the different aspects of the park. And then we also have a map of like how to walk around Idlewild without a cell phone, right? Who to talk to, who to meet, where to stop by, and like checking things off. So as of right now, like we're curating these experiences, and then we're celebrating the fact, we give them that disposable camera. So as they're in wild mode, they can capture it, they send it back to us, and we turn that into content for them. Right. So because people still want to capture it. Right. And we recognize that. We have some grander ideas in the future on how we can work that into the property as a whole. But yeah, as of right now, it's just, it's an invitation and then some suggestions on how to spend your time. And what we're realizing is the people that come to our website, FreeWild.com, and they book directly, they're coming to us for wild mode. Airbnb guests, which we get a lot of Airbnb business, there's a lot more education to get them into wild mode.
Sure.
But which is all good.
Yeah, yeah. You're probably old enough to, like, back in the day, like when you're driving, you had the fold out maps, and
yeah, my dad still uses them.
Or maybe your dad,
yeah.
trying to drive, get around. I mean, it's funny to think about, like, even navigating a town. Like, we just got back from a 2-week trip into Europe, and we're going to all the small remote villages. It's like, you're following the blue dot everywhere. But just hey, be able to fold out a map. We did some backpacking last summer, where you actually did get far enough out. And that experience of actually navigating, it's like, it's becoming a lost art of not following the blue dot. But yeah, I love that.
Really hey, fun. Actually, I just noticed your bow on your wall back there.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite wild mode experiences, is just
so good.
Spending hours just arrow after arrow. So I love that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a new hunter, but we're in Colorado. Like, you have an amazing opportunity with a lot of public land to be able to go hunt. And so I've committed now I've got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, and we did tags again. We did tags last year. We got them again this year, and it was such a great experience. I went bow hunting with my oldest son, and I went rifle
Nice.
hunting with my youngest.
Nice.
And it's something that you kind of prep and prepare for. And so I keep it on the wall just to remind me, and I'll go out and a couple months before bow season, start just you know pulling arrows and
Yeah.
just working with my son to do that. And it's like a great like disconnect, but as you're doing it, you're also thinking about the trip coming up. There's some preparation, you're planning this whole thing. So it becomes like at least a 3-4 month long thing versus just the thing, because it's something tactile, it's something you can get out in the wild with.
Yeah.
And we did it, a lot of different ways to hunt. We backpacked in and set up on a water hole, and then work that area for a couple of days.
Wow.
Just
Wow.
phenomenal. It's
That's
such a good
awesome, man.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my
Uh,
goal too. Like that's where I want to go is and like the reason I brought that up is like once I recognized my addiction to the phone and just technology, I started asking myself like what are some things I could do for the rest of my life that requires intense focus, right?
yeah.
Because what happens with the cell phone, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about this versus short-term rentals, but what happens with the cell phone is like your brain is so addicted to short-term rewards where just shooting arrows requires intense amount of focus, and you have one shot, you got to reset. One shot,
Mm,
reset. After 6 shots, you got to walk down, you got to pull your arrows back. So it's like the complete opposite of what our phones are doing to our brains. And at the same time, I got into jiu-jitsu, and I got into ceramics and like stuff
cool.
like that does the complete opposite of where our heads or our cell phones are at. So, but
I
anyway,
love it. Yeah.
that's enough wild mode chat, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I could probably talk on this all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we built this studio out down here 2 years ago, and my wife is an artist, and she is constantly taking over every space that I build. It's kind of become her, you know, it'll be a metal, jewelry, painting, whatever. It's been our whole life. She'll just kind of take over those spaces. And so we built this as a studio, and my son has gotten just as bad. Like he's into leather work now. He's into,
Nice.
knife making. And so they get the whole second half of this space over here. And it's like a whole artisan workshop. It's just a dream.
I love that.
And so they're doing things that are, a little bit disconnected from just screens. Not that they're not. I mean, they're all into it, but they've got the other things that are more tactile that you're touching. With the hunting, what I'm really excited about is as my oldest one is leaving, if we can begin to build that relationship where, hey, that's an annual thing to go hunt, and you start to learn that, hey, go all over the world, but this will be something that, you can kind of invest in, that, will repeat and, build that relationship, further on. And,
I love that.
I think that's what hospitality is all about. It's like,
Yeah.
are you creating spaces that you want to come back to that, really are giving restoration and building relationships? And, that's kind of the challenge in this space is how to do that, how to make it profitable, how to get people engaged. Yeah. So I don't know. There's that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that, man. And I agree. Like, so the whole reason we're talking about this is like, that's the ethos of my brand, right? FreeWild. And it's spawned off a lot. So like the people who seek our properties and stay at our properties, they're seeking that experience, right? They're seeking to connect with this idea that I have of like really investing into design and product. And we have in our company what we call the 4 non-negotiables. It's brand and product, it's revenue mastery, unreasonable hospitality, and operational excellence, right? Where it's like those things are a constant flywheel in our company to focus on driving wild mode, of course, but also creating an experience where guests they have to come back. It's sticky, like it sticks in their mind of like, this is not just the Airbnb I stayed at a FreeWild, right? It's a completely different experience. And that's one thing I would highly suggest, and I recommend to people all the time. It doesn't have to be this grand vision that I have. It could be just one cabin or one property, whatever it is, but whatever's true to you and true to the guests that you're trying to draw into this property.
What do you see as, and now that you've kind of implemented this, how long have you guys had Idlewild open for?
I think it's going on 2 years now.
Okay. And you've got a pretty good, uh, base of kind of traditional STRs versus nature focus. What do you see as the return on investment in this nature focus versus, kind of traditional?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily compare it to markets, like different type of markets, like urban to nature, because I think there's high demands for any market that's out there. So like on the other side of our business, growing a hotel business from the ground up is very expensive, requires a lot of intelligent human beings to develop it and a lot of money, right? I didn't want to go down the VC route, so we decided to self-fund the company, and we're okay with the timeline of it taking a bit longer. So we launched the service side of our business, and that's called FreeWild Foundry. And the first service that we launched was revenue management. And essentially what we do is we partner with property managers, investors, builders, anyone in the short-term rental space that has about 15 units or more. We come in and we take over their pricing and we drive revenue on a daily basis across their portfolio. So we're managing roughly about 60 million, 61 million in revenue. We have about just under 2,000 listings now that we're managing in our revenue process under FreeWild Foundry. And these are markets all around the world, right? So I bring all this up because we feel like we have this glimpse. We have we're looking at the industry in two different ways. One, as an operator that launched this brand FreeWild, but then two, as a service provider that has listings in any type of market you can think of, any type of property you can think of, all around the world, right? So we literally have listings everywhere. There's demand regardless of the market, but the things that are driving real demand and real profit and revenue are really what I mentioned there before. It's the companies that have a very distinct and clean product and brand, right? And it could be an Airbnb brand, whatever it is. But when you land on their property, on their listing, it's very clear who they are as a company or as a host. It's very clear that this is a professionally ran listing. You can get lost in the experience in the photos that they've decided to capture their property in. Their hospitality it's real human connection. It's not AI driven, right? It's you decided to stay with us. That makes us happy. Our goal is to make you happy, right? And it's like the companies and the hosts that focus on that truly love hospitality. Those are the ones that are thriving. The ones that are, Airbnb guests, they're so sick of booking properties and expecting one thing and then checking in and getting something completely different, right? Just like a host that doesn't care, that put in cheap items and furniture, a host that just automates everything and just doesn't really care about you. They just want the money, right? That's essentially what we see a lot of. So the hosts, the companies that focus on exceptional operations, right? Things break, it happens all the time, but do you have a process to fix it immediately? And then do you have the hospitality to communicate through and recognize that it's not your guest's problem, it's your responsibility to resolve it, right? These are the things that are truly driving real success in short-term rentals right now. It's not being in one market to the other or having unique tree houses versus condos. It's like, of course, the more unique you can get with the experience, the better. But you need those 4 non-negotiables in your business to truly drive real demand and have guests truly seek you out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So as a service portion of your business, why just revenue management, or is it just revenue management and not offering like property management for other businesses? Why'd you hone in and focus on that component?
Yeah, great question. So, when we recognized that we needed to, we recognized that the FreeWild brand was like, this idea was going to work, and we're getting the success on the cabins that we're running, and we wanted to grow it. And we started attracting in these incredibly talented humans to help us build this brand. They require and deserve high salaries and a lot of money, and we need to invest into different sides of this, right? So you have 2 options. You could either self-fund or you can go raise money. If you raise money, you're kind of selling a little bit of your soul control around your product and idea, right? I didn't want to give up FreeWild. So what me and my early team, my business partner, and at that time we had one employee, Kay, who still is part of our team. She built the brand and runs all the marketing. We started whiteboarding like what's the one thing that we do better than anybody else on the planet, right? That also the industry needs a solution to. And we mapped out all these different things. All right, we can go do property management, which I've done for many years. We can build brands. We can like all these different things. And what we recognized is when we launched FreeWild, we developed this really unique revenue management strategy that paired with our brand and the unreasonable hospitality. So paired with our brand, we were able to very quickly 2 to 4x our ADR and occupancy to the market. So, and we're still outperforming our entire market. So we realized like this is something that most hosts don't have a real revenue management strategy in place. They don't know what revenue management is. Most people think revenue management is having a pricing tool. So we're like, hey, let's try this. Let's roll it out to a couple of clients. And we realized like, hey, this one, we're the best in the world at this. 2, the industry really, really needs this solution. So we just decided to focus on entrepreneurs and businesses that have the ability to grow. They're focused on growth, but they haven't solved the revenue management side yet. So as of right now, that's what we're focused on. We throughout the year and a half that we launched FreeWild Foundry, we've also rolled out brand building. So we built a handful of different brands for hotels and boutique hotels and hospitality brands. We're not offering that as a major service, but we will in the future. We're also going to be rolling out a listing optimization service in the future as well. But as of right now, we have our blinders on to 2 things: being the best in the world at revenue management. And then number 2 is scaling FreeWild. More cabins.
Cool. So on the revenue management side, coming from my experience, we've got one short-term rental. We use Price Labs. We're just taking over the management. We're getting into that. So I don't know what I don't know and I'm missing there. And then on the boutique hotel side, we've hired a property manager. They have revenue management inside. What are the things that I should be aware of, or short-term rental host should be aware of that needs to be optimized specifically on revenue management, besides just having those couple of pieces in place that a service like yourself helps with?
Yeah, for sure. So number 1 is you need a revenue management expert in the seat of revenue management. What we find most of the time, and it could be a host that has 1 listing, or the clients that we work with that typically have anywhere between 15 and 200 listings. The CEO or the owner of the company is still in the revenue management seat, and they have a pricing tool, and once a week or once a month, someone jumps into the pricing tool and they move some settings around, and then they exit out, right? And they assume that because they have a pricing tool and they have some settings, that they have a strategy that's driving revenue. That is one of the biggest mistakes. And what we find is that most people that are in that space, which is 90% of hosts out there, are leaving 20 to 50% of growth on the books, right? So on the table, because they're not maximizing and playing with the pricing. Let me give you an example of this. So we're planning in July, I have back-to-back travel, speaking on stages, going to family events, like all this stuff. So some of it's personal, some of it's business. So my assistant and I sat down it took us like 3 hours to do all this booking. And we're opening up different flights, closing them out, opening them back up again, and all this stuff. And within an hour, we realized that because we were looking at certain prices, certain flights, and exiting out and then deciding to book that again, the prices went up because demand went up.
Yeah.
Right. So the system is recognizing that that demand is going up. Right. Your pricing tool does that. Right. But the difference is, so we ended up spending like an additional $400 because we didn't decide to book an hour earlier, right? And we were clicking around. Your pricing tool like Price Labs or Wheelhouse is designed to recognize that, right? But the human aspect, what I call the art and magic of it, are the ones that can study the data. They can understand what's happening in the markets. They play with things like pacing. They play with promotions and like all these different ideas to kind of guesstimate where the market's going to go. It's almost like gambling in a way, or stock trading in a way, to understand I'm reading trends and I'm making decisions on those trends, right? And if you have somebody who's obsessed with numbers and in that space, and if you match that with what we've just been talking about, product and brand and unreasonable hospitality and operations, all of that, you can drive your properties to be outperforming the market by 2, 3, 4x, right? So this is a long response of saying, if you're the person like yourself, like if you're the one driving pricing, you have 3 options. 1, yourself, become a pricing expert. There's courses. We have a course. There's plenty of training out there to go through to learn how to become a great revenue manager in your own business. But you have to be obsessed with those numbers and driving numbers on a daily basis. Just like you have to be obsessed with customer service and cleaning on a daily basis. Or number 2 is you hire somebody in-house to run it for you, a revenue manager. Or 3, you outsource it to a revenue management company that can put a person in that place, and you drive that company. We all have to move away from just having a pricing tool and setting things once or twice a month or a week or whatever.
So this, yeah, it sounds like kind of the option for like almost like a fractional CFO, kind of a fractional revenue management person would probably fit most people's businesses, unless you're, I assume, kind of getting up over that, 50 plus units, something like, or whatever the number might be.
Yeah. So if you're a host that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, you should be leading revenue yourself. It's not that difficult, right? It's something that you have to pay attention to, and you have to have some type of skill set to understand numbers and trends. And looking at, when I look at the graphs, like I'm not a graph or a spreadsheet person, right? It drives my brain crazy. But luckily my business partner, that's the way he sees the world. He sees the data, like he sees patterns in data, right? So he's able to communicate to me what he's noticing, and then we make a decision on the business, right? But if you're a host with 1 or a couple of listings, I highly, highly recommend getting training on revenue management. Okay. We do quite a bit of free training out to the public. People can follow me on LinkedIn, or they can go to FreeWildFoundry.com, and we do live webinars and stuff like that, just to get it out to the world of our teachings. If you are a property management company that's focused on growth, so if you know that you're going to be adding listings and you have 10 listings or more, you should find a service, right? You should find some, unless you want to hire that person in-house, which is a whole nother conversation to have. But you should find a service. And there's plenty of services like ours that are out there that service all different types of sizes of companies. But we can't just have a pricing tool anymore. We have to have a human aspect to driving the revenue.
Oh man, there's so much to this business. Like every time I kind of peel off an onion, it's like there's another layer that you got to go a little deeper on.
I never thought I would be obsessed with revenue management, man. Like this is not like all the stuff I've ever done. I never thought that this would be the thing that would really separate our business from everything else. But right now it is. So I highly suggest that people get obsessed with it.
Love it. How many partners are there in FreeWild? Is it you leading, or do you have another partner that's doing some of this as well?
So we have real estate, we have investors on the real estate side, so we're always meeting different investors and raising money as LP, as partners on those deals. But in the company of FreeWild and FreeWild Foundry, I have one business partner. We've been partners for 6 years now, Jasper Rivers. So he's one of the first starters in the space, launched the first Airbnb podcast called Get Paid for Your Pad, wrote the first book around Airbnb called Get Paid for Your Pad. So we've had a handful of different things together. So we run FreeWild, but he leads revenue management, the revenue department for FreeWild Foundry. It's really his brainchild that he developed. His strategy, his previous expertise is in trading. So he brought that knowledge into our properties, and we started recognizing the results. So now he leads that. And then FreeWild Foundry is just growing. I mean, we're adding, it seems like 2 team members a month right now. So we have a killer revenue management team, killer marketing, branding team. So yeah, we're growing. It's kind of
that's
nuts.
Great. That's great. So then you have a marketing branding side. So what does that look like, and what do you guys do within that?
Yeah, right now we're just focused internally of building both brands out, FreeWild and FreeWild Foundry. But Kay, she was our first, and we hired her. She had an agency, a branding agency. We hired her agency to build FreeWild, and she connected with the brand so much. Long story short, she shut down her company to join us in the very beginning. So she was employee number one. She's been with us since literally day two of this whole thing, and she has a whole department that's leading our direct booking side of FreeWild. So if you follow FreeWild on Instagram, you can kind of see like her social media side that's driving a ton of bookings. And now, yeah, so it's all internally, but in the future, the goal is to roll out branding packages for boutique hotels and short-term rental spaces. So we'll help kind of build the brand the same way that we did with FreeWild, and then also listing optimization, which is the next big thing to kind of
Yeah.
focus on as an industry.
So there's such a huge chunk that gets pulled out by OTAs, and direct booking is a real important thing for especially as you get more units to make it optimized. What do you guys do as part of your direct booking strategy, and what type of direct booking are you guys driving at FreeWild?
Yeah, I don't know. We typically right now we hover around 30 to 50% on a high end. Our goal is to get to 70%. I think properties like tree houses and unique spaces have a better ability to drive a higher demand off platforms like Airbnb and all that. So our goal is to continue to creep that up. The way that we're doing that, we love Airbnb. Airbnb is like top of funnel for us. Great partner for us. They drive a lot of business to us, right? So I think we'll always be a part of Airbnb. But our goal is once someone books a property with us, our goal is to really connect with them on such a high level that they identify with the brand. And when they come back, they book with us directly, right? That's a big part of it, is like, what is the process driving from Airbnb, over delivering this incredible experience, and then getting them to come back to us directly, right? So that's number one. Number two is social media. We put a lot of time into our Airbnb, our Instagram account. We're on TikTok and a few other things, but Instagram is number one for us. So it's Stay FreeWild on Instagram. We have a two-prong approach there. One is creating authentic content that tells the story of FreeWild through our eyes, right? So it's cabin, really beautiful content that we invest a lot of money into from professional content creators. And then number two is we do partnerships with content creators that have large followings that fit our brand. And what we learned there is, in the beginning, we started just kind of bringing in anybody who had big followings. But what we've learned is narrowing down content creators and accounts on Instagram that are regional to your property, right? So like finding a Denver or Colorado focused nature travel account that has, a million followers on it that have high engagement. They will do or say they have 100,000 followers. They would do a lot better than someone who's global that has a million followers. They will drive that smaller account, regional account will drive higher bookings and engagement to you. So we do a lot of giveaways, right? So we'll partner with them, we'll pay them to come out to the property, create content, and then we do a joint giveaway where we'll physically give away a weekend to followers that do certain things. And that's been driving our engagement and direct bookings through the roof.
Yeah. What do influencers generally charge? Or is it free stay? Does it depend? What's kind of
Yeah.
a typical that you expect?
You can go anywhere between 0 to sky's the limit.
Mhm.
Typically, there's other content creators that don't require to go to your property. We want our content creators to go and experience FreeWild and wild mode so they can talk about it. Our brand and everything we do is all about being authentic, right? It's what you come across is 100% what it is. There's no hidden agendas, nothing, right? It's like, how do we tell true stories in our content? So we do require our content creators come to the property. They stay for 1 or 2 nights. We gift that to them. If they have high following, high engagement, and they have really good content creation skills, they typically have packages that will go anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000, right? That's typical. The bigger content creators can charge more than that. I haven't really seen, we've got one quote for 20 grand, but we decided not, and we're like,
Yeah.
take a lot of bookings for us to make that back. Doesn't really make sense. But yeah, so I would recommend giving your property away for free, try to negotiate a trade. And then there's all different types of packages that are out there. I forget their name, but they just launched one of our most popular content creators that have created the best content for us, husband and wife. They just launched a course for short-term rental operators that teach this exactly, of how to find content creators, how to put packages together, what to ask for, all of that. If I can't pull it up now, I'll send it to you and we can put it in the show notes. Yeah. But yeah, they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I had a couple on earlier podcasts, and I'm Honey Trekkers. Is it them?
Husband and wife. So.
Okay, they've got a couple of books out. They're really fun couple. They were on.
Got it.
Maybe a couple months ago. Yeah. So, have you found that's been worth paying? Like, is that driving bookings and getting a good return? Sure.
Yeah, it's worth investing into those really good content creators that align with your brand. So we look for content creators that focus on creating travel content around nature, right? Ideally, they're in SoCal or in California. Those accounts, and they have to have high engagement, organic high engagement. Those accounts will pay all day long for you guys to come out, stay at our property, and create an awesome experience through your content. We made the mistake of early in the day of like hiring the attractive Instagram model who has a ton of followers who will come out and create really good content, but their followers aren't following them for the right reasons, right? So they're not converting to bookings, right? So that wasn't worth the investment. These like micro accounts that align with the brand is worth the investment, in my opinion. If you have a great product and brand, you can't just bring people into crappy Airbnbs. It has to be something that people want to travel to and like desire.
What about paid ad strategy, Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, we haven't really had too much success with that. I don't really know too many people that have. We do have retargeting ads that are out there. We do use the content that we get. The ones that do really well, we'll put money behind on Instagram and boost it, right? So that works well. But we haven't really had too much success personally with creating ads, just Facebook ads or Instagram ads.
Okay.
We haven't really seen that, but that's just our experience.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? You said you're looking at expanding into another property or properties. What's on the boat?
I mean, we've been putting offers in on properties, but I haven't really found anything that really feels or fits with the brand. So yeah, our goal, two-prong approach. We're going to be building 6 more cabins in Idlewild. That's the goal. That's what we're working on now.
And you're working through permitting on that? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. So, and California is just like, if you could, just like New York says, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Yeah. California really, really tests real estate developers. So we're working on building 6 additional cabins, and then we're focused on scaling FreeWild Foundry, really partnering with the right operators and short-term rental hosts that need that support on the revenue management side, because the results that we're getting are so freaking exciting to watch on a daily basis. So we're focused on just growing those 2 verticals of our company and keeping the blinders on. Of course, if we find the right property, we'll raise money and do our thing to buy it. But from now until the end of the year, that's what we're going to be dialed in on.
Nice. And are you doing any current coaching or speaking this year, or what's your?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking. We haven't really done the coaching thing because it takes a lot of time. And for us, Jasper and I, we really care about the result. So you're trading your time and emotions, and like you're all bought in on this. So we got out of the coaching side about 2 years ago, just because of the emotional and time commitment that is required to get real results for people. We do run a mastermind. We've had this mastermind for 5 years now. It's called the Foundry Mastermind. We just rebranded it. So we have members that have been in there with us for 5 years. Our RPM clients are in there. RPM is our revenue management service. So that's really the only place. Once a week, we'll run a call. Today, we ran a call on hiring and building a team. Next week is on branding and developing. developing a brand. So that's really it. And then I'm trying to speak on as many stages as possible, just to
Nice. Any
communicate
good
these
events that
ideas.
are coming up this year that should be on our radar that you're going to be at?
Yeah, so I'm going to be speaking at IMN in Park City, Utah in mid-July. I recommend that. That's going to be awesome. Then we're going to be down in Vegas, out in Vegas in October for VRMA. The whole team, well, a lot of the team is going to be there. And then there's some smaller masterminds that we're going to be a part of as well throughout the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Have you done anything with Rich Summers' mastermind up in San Diego?
No. Rich and I haven't really crossed paths yet. I'm looking forward to the day that we do, because we have so many mutual contacts, and and he's right up the road from us. But no, one day soon.
Yeah,
we'll cross paths with him.
Let me know if you want an introduction. We're in his mastermind. He's been super helpful.
Nice. Yeah. I would love the intro. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Eric, if people want to connect with you, what's the best place to connect?
Yeah, right now is LinkedIn. So Eric D. Moeller on LinkedIn that's where I spend all my time when I'm outside of podcasts. That's where I spend most of my time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, for sharing. Check out his project, FreeWild, if you guys get a chance. Really cool work that they're doing over there. Eric,
thank you.
Peace.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me on here.